I just had a great mind body class. It was a Saturday morning that I'm shooting this on. And uh, what happened this morning was I got up and I did a little meditation. And then I went into my living room and I turned on YouTube and I ended up seeing a video by Greg Braden, who I highly recommend. And it was about the different brainwave states that science shows that we go into, and how for a long time it was accepted that there were only four brainwave states: delta, the deep sleep state; theta, the deep meditation state; alpha, the meditation state; and then beta, the busy brainwave state. But then he was also explaining how they started studying Tibetan monks who meditate all the time, and that they were exhibiting higher frequency states of consciousness called gamma wave consciousness, and then even deeper states than delta sleep states, and then they eventually exhibited even higher states and even lower states. So then I went and did my mind body class, and then I always do a meditation, when I'm in my car before I go into the class. And so I went into the class, and we uh, went through a meditative experience where we all connected. We all go into alpha state, or maybe even alpha delta, alpha theta, that deeper meditative state. And it was an extraordinary experience because after we finished, it was like it was no longer a room full of different people. It was like this group experience, and people started talking about it in the class. And so I started mentioning, I wrote a book called The Gospel of Science in second edition, The Gospel of Science, Mind-Blowing New Science on Ancient Truths to Heal Our Stress Lives and Planet. And in the book, I talk about some of the really beautiful things. And that's what I talked to the class about after we finished the meditation, and they started sharing experiences about there's some really, really beautiful things that are happening on the planet that we just don't hear about. And it's good to keep things in perspective. And one of the things that is happening is mind body practices, these theta meditative state experiences that are taught in a myriad of ways. And they can be experienced through repetitive prayer as well. But the big five are Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. And I kind of incorporate all those into my teaching. But anyway, these are being taught by people all over the planet and practiced by people all over the planet. And the number of people that have been practicing things has expanded exponentially over the last 40 or 50 years. And really, the Beatles, the Beatles kind of kicked all this off when they went to India to study meditation with the Maharishi. And George Harrison, I saw an interview with George Harrison that was really poignant. And he said, we were just four working class British kids who suddenly had all the wealth that you could imagine. We could buy any physical pleasure that we wanted, but it just wasn't making us happy. And so that's what led them to the Maharishi in India. And so then, kids like me all over the world that love the Beatles were watching when they went to India. And, kids like me in Western Kansas, that small town I grew up in, we were wondering to ourselves, what's this meditation thing that the Beatles are doing? And it had an impact on us. And so anyway, these things became very popular, and then they started spreading all over the planet. And then the science started to catch up with these things, like Greg Braden was talking about. And one of the things that's been happening over these decades is that violent crime rates have been dropping precipitously for the last 40 years. And in my book, The Gospel of Science, I have the FBI data and also the United Nations data that shows that this isn't just happening in the United States, it's happening in many countries around the world. And sociologists can't explain it because it's not because of certain policing or anything like that, because, it's all different everywhere and all over the country and all over the world. But what the science shows is that when we go into these states of what science is calling coherent consciousness, where we come together, we go into these states of coherent consciousness or alpha brainwave consciousness. And then what happens is the part of the brain that makes us feel isolated and separate, that part of the brain becomes much less active. but the part of the brain that makes us feel connected to people in the universe, that part of the brain becomes much more active, and it ripples out past our own minds. And I became really viscerally aware of this when I had an opportunity to teach mind body practices at Folsom Prison many years ago. And while I thought I was going to be introducing them to mind body practices, but when I got there, I realized they'd already had a mind body program there for 2 years, a Tai Chi Chuan program. And thousands of inmates at Folsom had participated in this. Not the whole prison, but a significant number of people over those 2 years. And what had happened was the behavior rates had improved, not just for the meditating or the mind body group or the Tai Chi Chuan group, but they'd improved for the entire prison. And this led me to investigate this further, the science on this. And I became aware of the Transcendental Meditation Foundation's research. And they had done research in many cities across the country, but the first one was in Washington, D.C. And what they proposed was they were going to bring the equivalent of 1% of the city of Washington, D.C.'s population, bring in high-level meditators to equal that 1%. And they were working with the police department, the statistics department, and also universities in these programs. And what they found, what they proposed to the police chief in Washington, D.C., was that they were going to bring the violent crime rates down by 20%. And he kind of laughed it off. It was in August, the high crime season. He said, "Yeah, if we have a blizzard in August, maybe they'll do that." He wasn't buying it. But they did it, and a couple of amazing things happened. One is as the meditators didn't all come in like all at once. They came in over a period of days, and as they came in over a period, as the number of high-level meditators increased in Washington, D.C. over the period of days, the violent crime rates had a corresponding decrease. And not only did they bring the violent crime rates down 20%, like they had said that they would, but they brought them down 23%. And this was replicated. They did a study in 48 cities across the country. And in all those cities, when they brought in 1% of high-level meditators, the violent crime rates reduced in all those cities as compared to the control cities. And another amazing thing about that was that effect lasted for 5 years after the study was done. And so this is happening all over the planet. And the planet Earth is actually right now vastly less violent than it has ever been before in human history. And there's a great book, Steven Pinker, a social psychologist at Harvard, I believe. He wrote it. It's called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And he does a forensic study of the history of humanity, going back to like cavemen things that they found, and testing blood samples on spearheads and things like that. And then it progresses, as science gets more sophisticated through the history of humanity. And what you realize after you read the Better Angels of Our Nature is that he's absolutely right. The planet Earth is vastly less violent than it's ever been before in human history. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not things happening on the planet that we should be concerned about. And we are, and that's why they're happening less. That's why these violent things are happening less on the planet. Now, there's other issues, there's poverty and hunger issues that we need to deal with. But the mind-body practices will help us deal with those things because Dr. Herbert Benson at Harvard, he was the first person that really put together the science on mind-body practices, the big five: Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And then he also said repetitive prayer is shown to be able to take us into these alpha brainwave states. But what his research showed was that up to 90% of the health issues that we're facing are best treated or prevented by mind-body practices. They're caused by stress and best treated or prevented by mind-body practices. And that was backed up by a 20-year study at Kaiser Permanente, where they observed their patients. And what they found was that up to 70% of the health issues were caused by stress, chronic unmanaged stress. And I contacted Kaiser after I saw that study because it was fitting in with what I was looking at. I talked to Dr. David Sobel at Kaiser, who was familiar with the research and very excited about it. And he confided to me that he said that number could actually go up to 85% depending on how you looked at the data. So that confirmed what Dr. Herbert Benson was saying. And so eventually this led to our formation of the Global Transformation Project. So you can go to globaltransformationproject.org and you can sign a petition where we're campaigning for a United Nations non-binding resolution. Nobody be forced to do it, but it'd be an opportunity to get this science out to public educators all over the planet. And what the resolution proposes is a 1 hour mind-body class become a core part of public education worldwide. And so that would be, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness. Now, there might be a way where students could do their own repetitive prayer if they wanted to as part of the program, but we don't include that because, religion in school, that's an issue. And so Tai Chi and Qigong, yoga, meditation, mindfulness, they can all be taught in a non-religious, just brainwave science, stress management practice. And once we get this and the educators all over the planet start seeing this science, they're going to want to make mind body a core part of public education. And so what that'll do in time is it'll profoundly bring down the health issues that people are facing, and it'll save society trillions of dollars year after year after year. But it'll also reduce violence on the planet, and in time, it'll virtually empty the prisons. And that's a huge deal in the United States because we imprison more of our people than any country on the planet at a time when violent crime rates are at 40-year low. So that this definitely needs to happen. And we would save trillions in court, police, prison costs, all these kind of things, not to mention just the suffering that people go through, from dealing with all these things. And so this is there's a mass global awakening and a potential for humanity that is so incredibly powerful and so positive and so beautiful. And we need to be aware of it, and we need to start educating other people about it. So if you go to globaltransformationproject.org, you can look at the science on education, and you can see just the profound benefits that we get from these brainwave changes that these mind-body practices produce. And teaching children this is not going to be like a big deal because children are in a meditative state most of the time up to about age 10 or 11. And so essentially what we'd be doing with mind body practices in school, and they'd be taught in playful ways for little kids. I just found out about a great book called Tai Chi for Kids and the Parents Who Love Them. And it's a really beautiful book. But there's teachers out there that are already teaching in public education, and they're seeing bullying rates go down. They're seeing test scores go up, all the things that we want. Science shows that when we practice meditation on a regular basis, our IQ goes up 20 points. And that's just the beginning. That just touches the benefits that we get from this intellectually, mentally. But then, of course, as you know, we get these incredible, health benefits where we can heal from things, chronic health issues and I see this I teach I've taught in hospitals for 40 years, and I've seen people, with chronic illnesses, find like spontaneous healing as they practice mind-body practices, because the body's a healing machine. It wants to heal and it wants nothing more than to heal. And so the mind body practices teach us how to let go of the rat race and kind of let go of the clutter and the urgency in the mind and the heart and allow a clear space throughout our field and our psyche and our body. And then the body's natural healing effects start to have space to go into high productivity. Our DNA expression changes. This is all science. But when we practice these alpha state producing mind body practices, alpha brainwave state producing mind body practices, our DNA expression starts to change and go into a much more healthful mode. And so these beautiful things are happening. The planet is in a really beautiful place. It's poised for some really extraordinary possibilities. And so it's important for all of us to hold that in our mind and our heart. so that we don't have this real dismal kind of apocalyptic view of the planet and the future, because that's what we get from the news. And the reason we get that from the news is because the media has figured out that if they frighten us and upset us or make us angry, it releases stress chemicals. And then those stress chemicals create kind of a high. It's kind of an adrenaline high. And then we get addicted to those stress chemicals and we keep coming back every day. So I'll get people in my hospital classes and they'll say, "Oh yeah, yeah, I start every day with the news and a cup of coffee." And for a lot of these folks, because they're sick or retired or whatever, that will go on all day long. They'll just stew in that fear-based media propaganda, really is what it is, because it's not reality-based. Because in my classes, when I did stress management classes in corporations, I'd always, or a lot of times I would ask people, I'd say, who thinks that violence is worse in the world than it's been before? And most of the time, most of the hands raised, and the public opinion polls show that that's the case. Most people think that the world's much more violent and out of control than it really is. And so then I explained to him, no, that's not really true. Violent crime rates have been dropping for 40 years precipitously, and the planet is actually vastly less violent than it's ever been before. But what happens is we get all the worst things that happen around the planet through the media, and the media focuses on the worst things because that triggers the stress chemicals, and then they get more viewership. They can actually map all this stuff. They can get minute to minute, data on what words they say that stimulate more viewership. And in fact, one of the executives of CNN was caught saying, "Fear sells. We sell fear." He didn't know that he was on video when he was saying it, but it's out there. You can find it on YouTube. And it's really important that we get ourselves into a reality-based mindset because it just makes us feel so much better to deal with reality. And the reality is that the planet is getting more and more beautiful and the possibilities are greater. Now, I know that the institutions that service the healthcare institutions, the government institutions, these things, they don't reflect the beauty that's going on in the world. They're in this whole other kind of tight, constricted, media bubble of divisiveness and attack. And, oh, they're evil, vote for us. Oh, they're evil, vote for us, and all that stuff. It just goes on and on. But this revolution of consciousness that's happening, this is beyond all that. And all that becomes more and more meaningless because it's not real as we ground ourselves and we find this space. And so at the end of this class, we talked about some of this stuff, and we'd all gone through this alpha brainwave, presentation and experience together. And it was just so beautiful when I was walking out of class. I was just watching the way that people were treating each other. And it was just really sweet. There was this one lady that's in my class, and she walked up to this other lady that's in the class because they're all fairly new and they don't really know each other. And she said, "You just look so elegant," to this other student. And I know that meant a lot to this other student because this other student had hurt her knee, and so she's been walking on a cane. She's trying to get fixed, but it takes time. And so I know that made her feel really good because she used to be an actress. And so she does have kind of a regal air to her. And then there were other people that were just saying really sweet things to each other. And you could tell everybody felt really connected. And but at the beginning of the class, before we all went into alpha state together, it just seemed like everybody was kind of alone, not really, there were a few people that knew each other that were talking to each other, but the class didn't feel like a connected group. But by the time we walked out of there, it did. And that's what's happening around the planet. And this is happening, so every time we go into a coherent state of consciousness, uh, it actually ripples out. That's what the science is showing. It ripples out through the collective consciousness of humanity. And 27 years ago, we founded World Tai Chi and Qigong Day because we wanted to hold a global annual event where people would hold these mass exhibitions of mind-body practices, primarily Tai Chi and Qigong, but a lot of events had yoga, meditation, mindfulness practices, and Sufi dancing, and Aboriginal dances. All these kind of consciousness elevating practices, and it spread all over the planet. And so, and then many years later, when I started writing the Gospel of Science second edition, I contacted an organization called the Global Consciousness Project. And it was born out of early research at Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory. And it was founded by the past 20-year director of the Princeton University Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory. And what that all came out of was they started to realize people's consciousness could affect technology, could affect their computers. And so that's the Princeton University Engineering Anomalies Research Laboratory, when consciousness would create an anomaly in the technology. And so they ended up putting these computers all over the planet. And the first thing they detected was Princess Diana's funeral. She was very beloved around the planet. And so during her funeral, their computers showed a great increase in coherence of global consciousness because people around the world, people loved her around the world. She was a really beautiful human being. She was trying to get the big countries that have wars in small countries to be responsible for moving all the landmines out of those countries after the wars so that kids wouldn't keep getting their limbs blown off for decades afterwards. And so, yeah, she was very beloved. And so, yeah, so they saw that result on their computers, an increase in global consciousness. And anyway, I had contacted them because many years before, in 2007, I had contacted them to see if they could look at their data on World Tai Chi Day and see whether that had increased coherence and global consciousness. And they hadn't gotten back to me. And so, I was really disappointed, but I was busy organizing World Tai Chi Day and, my classes and, all the local stuff. I'm just a local Tai Chi teacher, really. But they never got back to me. And so, I was disappointed, but I just kind of let it go. I was busy. Well, anyway, when I was writing the second edition of the Gospel of Science, I contacted them again because I knew that since the World Tai Chi Day was founded, that had spawned other global mind-body meditative type events. So the International Day of Yoga was founded by the United Nations about 15 years after World Tai Chi Day was founded. And then World Peace Meditation Day, these different dates. And so, but the people at the uh, Global Consciousness Project that I contacted, the researchers, they didn't know that I'd founded World Tai Chi Day. I just told them that I was writing a book and I wanted to see if any of these global mind-body events had shown an increase in global consciousness, not just for the people participating, but for the whole planet. And they got back to me right away. And they said, yeah, we've studied, I think they said several hundred of these. And they had a list that they gave me of some of them. And right at the top of the list was World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. And again, they didn't know that I founded World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. They just, but it was right at the top of the list. And so, what we realize is that every time we go into these coherent states of consciousness, and that's what meditation is, it's going into a coherent state of consciousness. Every time we do that, it's rippling out and it's having a healing effect on the whole planet, the whole planet. So isn't that nice to know? I mean, not only is it healing us from the things that we're dealing with, but it's having a healing effect on the entire planet. So I hope that everybody will find local mind-body teachers and classes in their community because they're an incredibly important resource at this time on the planet. And it's really important that we patronize those classes. So instead of going to a movie once a week, go to a mind-body class. Patronize your local mind-body teachers, your local Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, meditation, and mindfulness teachers. But also you can go to our YouTube channel, which is at the @ at Global Transformation Project with no spaces, at Global Transformation Project. And then you can add Bill Douglas or Tai Chi, and it'll definitely bring up our channel if you put all that in the search on your YouTube app on your television. And then you can subscribe to our channel. It's free. Everything there is free. And you'll just find this incredible resource that you can really change the way that you see everything in a much more positive way. And we also have tutorials. We have different kind of meditative techniques that you can do there and Tai Chi and Qigong techniques. And then I have other teachers as well. Yoga with Adrienne. She's a really good yoga teacher that teaches with a beginner's mind so that, even though I'm not a yogi, I can do it with her and not feel like I'm, not capable of doing it. She's really gentle and aware of people like me that are just, learning how to do it. And then we have Dr. Bruce Lipton, the author of The Biology of Belief. We have Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's done some incredible work on realizing how we get programmed. Just like most people are programmed to think that the world is just going to hell in a handbasket, and it's not really. And so as we become more aware of facts and reality, we can start to reprogram ourselves. And mind-body practices are a huge part of the reprogramming. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this. So we just have a wealth of information there that you can take care of, that you can take advantage of. And then we also have like a whole year of monthly discussions that we did, a series that we did with leading scientists in consciousness and mind, body, and brain science. And a lot of that science is in my book, The Gospel of Science, second edition. But we have the footage of those actual interviews that eventually became part of the Gospel of Science. We have them on our YouTube channel. And so if you go there, you can get your mind into a reality-based space where you start to see the beauty and the potential of us as human beings, and also of us and our place on the planet, and a planet that is evolving and moving towards some really amazing possibilities for the future. And it's already happening. You're never going to see it on the news, but it's already happening. And so if you go there and see these interviews, you'll know what I'm talking about. Or if you get the Gospel of Science second edition, uh, uh, which is in Audible book, ebook, and also paperback. And just for those of you, this may be available worldwide. I don't know, but it definitely in the United States, and I think Canada as well. But you can try it if you live somewhere else. If you get the ebook, the Kindle version, which is $9.99, and then after that, then if you go back in and get the Audible book, Amazon gives you the Amazon Audible version for $1.99. So you can get the ebook with all the graphics and everything, and then also you can get the Audible version, so you can listen to it in your car when you're traveling or whatever, for less than you can just get the Audible book. But it's good to have the print book, either ebook or paperback, because I have a web page that has all the end notes. And so when I was writing it, I knew that people wouldn't believe the science, because I had experienced it in my classes when I talk about it. People wouldn't believe it. And so I meticulously endnoted all the science. It's 700 pages, meticulously endnoted science, but it's written in a entertaining story form. But I meticulously endnoted any references to the science so that you could see the universities or the laboratories or the sources, the articles, whatever, of where that science came from, so that you know that it's real. And then on globaltransformationproject.org page, I have a page within that website that's Gospel of Science links. And so you have live links to all this. So if you get the ebook or the print book, the Audible book's really nice to just relax and listen to. But if you get the print book and the ebook and you look at the sources in the endnotes, you can go to that page and then you can just click on the live links, and then you can know that all this is true. And then what I'm hoping that you'll do is you'll start to spread this gospel of science, because the more that people move out of the fear mode and move into the hopeful possibility that is reality based, because the fear mode's not. The hopeful, soothing possibility is real. And so the more of that reality we can get out through society, the more rapidly these positive changes are going to happen throughout society. Fear is never going to bring us where we want to be. The reason that we imprison more of our people in the United States than any country in the world is because of that fear that I was talking about that the media generates. It makes people think that, oh, crime is so bad and people are so dangerous and so evil. So we have to have more prisons to put more people in so that we can be safe. And none of it is reality. It's all unreality, because violent crime rates are at 40-year lows, not just in the United States, but in many countries around the world. And so the more we come to terms with the reality and the more we go into these states of coherent consciousness, then the less fear there is in the global consciousness. Now, fear is not as powerful as hope and connection and healing states of consciousness are. And when we go into alpha state or heart-centered consciousness, where we're going to these feeling experiences of our being, what the science shows that that's very healing. And it's so profoundly healing that it changes the molecular structure of our heart and brain, but it also echoes out and it changes society around us. So we're in a really unique moment in time, and we can have a huge effect on the vibratory rate of the global consciousness by the practices that we practice, where we put our minds, what kind of information we let ourselves be filled with, and also how we talk to other people and start sharing this hopeful science with other people. And so that's why, I'm hoping people will spread the second edition of the Gospel of Science so that we can get this reality-based vision out there just as wide and far as we can. And then also people that are practicing mind body already, well, people that aren't will want to do it because they'll see all the health benefits that you'll see in the science in the book. But the people that are practicing it already will realize just how valuable their practice are, how valuable they are when they practice these things, and how valuable they are when they spread this awareness of this beautiful transformation that is happening around the planet, and how that will change global consciousness. And so this is where we are as a human race right now. We're not in a place where, arguing and politics is going to solve everything, and it doesn't. It makes things worse. We're all starting to become aware of that. And I've been involved in politics for 40 years. It's like I'm not, not I'm not out of touch with all that stuff. But as I've been exposed to all this science and these mind body practices in a huge way, and seeing the effect that it has on people and society and the whole planet, now it's so clear to me that it's the vibratory rate of the planet that is going to change things. It's not going to be intellectual discussions or arguments or anything like that. And so the more that hope and connection and healing becomes the vibratory rate that we're expressing and expanding through the planet, and the less that we participate in the unreal fear-based, hysterical, media, popular culture delusion, the faster and easier the transformations of the planet are going to happen, that are already happening in really beautiful ways, in really beautiful ways. So anyway, I hope that you'll enjoy some of the meditative things that we have at our website and spread them. They're all free. You can send them to all your friends, and and they can subscribe to at Global Transformation Project, Bill Douglas, World Tai Chi. Search for it, and you'll see the channel. And then I hope you'll encourage people to read the new second edition of the Gospel of Science. And I give the new second edition of the Gospel of Science away 4 times a year. I give it away every year on World Tai Chi and Qigong Day, on World Yoga Day, the International Day of Yoga, on World Peace Meditation Day, and on World Silent Prayer Day. So making money off of it's not my main goal. My main goal is getting it out there and letting it have its effect on the vibratory rate of global consciousness. So I hope you don't look at this when I'm talking about it and say, "Oh, he's trying to make a buck." I mean, I'm just a Tai Chi teacher. I'm not rich. I could use a buck, but I give it away 4 times a year. So it's just like I just want people to know that that's not the motivation. The motivation is to get this information out there. But if you can afford to get a copy of it, like I said, you can get the ebook and the Audible version for $12, and then you'll be able to listen to it. And I listen to my own Audible version from time to time because it is easy for me to forget and to get tangled up in the hysterical kind of doom and gloom way of looking at everything. And because that's kind of the vibe, the popular culture vibe. And if you haven't noticed it, you just haven't been paying attention. All you got to do is listen. If you listen to people talk, a lot of times, they'll mention some crime or some horrible thing that they saw in the news, and then and then somebody else that they're talking to, they'll go, "Oh yeah, oh the world, yeah, where's the world going to?" So if you haven't heard that, you haven't been paying attention. But we can change all that. And so I do. I change it. It's like if I hear those conversations, I'll just tell people, yeah, actually, it's like at a 40 violent crime rates are at a 40-year low, and the planet's vastly less violent than ever before. Now, sometimes that'll make people uncomfortable because what happens is when you tell them that, they start in their mind, their whole world starts to fall apart because they put all their faith and reality in what they see on the TV and on the news every day. And so that starts to shatter. And so sometimes it'll kind of irritate people, but in the long run, it'll do them a lot of good. They might not accept what you're saying. You can point them to the science. You can point them to the Global Transformation Project and Gospel of Science, second edition. But just telling them that'll plant a seed in their brain, and then eventually maybe they'll see somebody else talk about the reality of where the planet's going. And so, we just keep having like a positive vibe and, keep coming back to, reality. And so that's why I listen to my ebook from time to time so that I can be reminded just how beautiful this evolution of the planet is that we're involved in. And then, when we go into these meditative states, especially in a group, when we do it with other people, we kind of see the shine, we see how it affects people around us. And then we just want more and more of it. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you'll subscribe to the YouTube channel and also like and share the videos because we don't get exposure from YouTube. Unfortunately, the algorithms don't support solution-based programming. They tend to favor, conflict-oriented things. And they suppress certain topics and things as well, which is a whole other issue. And if you do get the new second edition of the Gospel of Science, feel free to contact me. Tell me what you think about it. If you have any questions about it or anything like that, and I'm happy to help. And if you enjoy any of the meditations that I have up on the YouTube channel, and I've got lots of other teachers programs as well, so it's not just me. But if you do any of mine, you have any questions, feel free, shoot me an email or something, and I'll try to answer them. So anyway, I hope you have a really good day. I'm having a great one so far. All right. So thanks a lot. Take care.
Vashamaye Swaha. Om Shrim Lim Klim Lam Gam Ganapati Vara Varada Saravajanam Me Vashamaye Swaha. Om Shrim Lim Klim Lam Gam Ganapati Vara Varada Saravajanam Me Vashamaye